is the general manager of the infrastructure agency, Mr. Yura. So please.
Thank you for giving time to introduce myself to you. I'm Yura from the Japanese government agency. We are devoted to the reconstruction of recovery of the Fukushima prefecture, Fukushima area. And today I came to talk to you or your professors to discuss the good relationship from with the Japanese institutes and these international agencies. We are now preparing for new institute for research and education in Fukushima, so and that's also the reason for coming today. Thank you very much. Please enjoy and study well here in Fukushima. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And now we are pleased to welcome Dr. Tanigawa, the director of the Futaba Medical Center. The medical center is a new medical facility in the Futaba region that opened in 2018. Today, Dr. Tanigawa will talk about the role of the medical center in the Futaba area. So, Dr. Tanigawa, please.
Hello, everyone, and I'm very happy to see all the friends and there. And since the 2011, it has almost passed the 12 years. As time goes by, that you see, my hair turns gray, and everybody inevitably getting old. Today, I'm talking a little bit about the medical system development after the accident, and particularly in the human history. This was the first time for us to rebuild the society, the area where the once evacuation order was enacted. And so it might be of some help for you. I think some of the people actually come over here from the other countries where the nuclear power plant is very located close by. And so I just start, and as you see, this is a map of the Fukushima, and also its close-up area is the Futaba region, where you are right now. This map shows the green area was once where the evacuation was issued, and so after the accident, the area evacuation was gradually lifted, step by step. And the red area is remained difficult to return zone. That means people are not allowed to live over there. And you are right now in the Tomioka town, and Tomioka was once all evacuated. And so fortunately, because of the active decontamination efforts and also the natural decline of radiation levels, and right now the area of the difficult to return zone has been reduced to 1/3 of the once areas where the evacuation was ordered. But since the accident, initially the emergency operation was performed to cool down the nuclear system. And so a lot of the emergency workers actually, including me, myself, I'm here over there to join the medical rescue effort over here. And for those people actually, came these areas since the accident. But since then, the national government started the decontamination project, and also revitalization project over here in Futaba region. As the activity has increased, the more people came in, and eventually the people get sick or sometimes get injured. This slide shows the number of ambulance transports. This data was provided by Futaba Fire Department. And as you see, before the accident, 2010, the number of the ambulance transport was greater than 2,400. And actually, this was not a big numbers compared to the other areas like Iwaki cities, Fukushima cities, or the cities where you are from, because this area was less densely populated. Because that is one of the reasons the national government built the nuclear power plant. And of course, since the accident, all the people here were evacuated, and the number of the cases, transportation cases, decreased. 2011, 900, less than 800. But most of the transport was, related to the job related. That means those are related to rescue effort or the emergency operation of the cooling down the nuclear fuel. 2012, since the 2012, it has increased gradually and increased by almost 10% per year, because some of the people actually returned over here. In 2014, Kauchimura, the evacuation order was lifted partially. And in 2017, Tomioka and Namiya town, where the evacuation order was lifted. But 2020, the number has just declined. I will explain later. This is because this is related to the coronavirus, outbreak. This slide shows the breakdown of the number of ambulance transport by municipalities. And also this red arrow shows the year when the evacuation orders were lifted. And in Kauchi village, 2014, as I mentioned, evacuation was lifted. And but things, Kauchi village, part of the Kauchi village actually, designated as, difficult to return zone. But soon, 2014, it was lifted. And the number of the ambulance calls are relatively, stable. On the other hand, when we look at the Namie and the Tomioka, where the biggest population here before the accident, in Namie, it has the 20,000 people before the accident. And these two municipalities, evacuation was lifted in 2017. And since the 2017, the ambulance, transport increased gradually. And also in the Naraha town here, in the south part of the Futaba County, the population has the second biggest in this area. The Naraha town, the evacuation was lifted in 2015. And since then, of course, the people started to return. That's one of the reasons, number of the ambulance calls increased. And also the Okuma town, where the evacuation was ordered lifted 2019, 3 years ago. Although the number itself is small, but it increased. And as you see, the number of ambulance calls depends on how fast the evacuation was lifted. This is what we have, observed in medical, needs also. This slide shows the reason of ambulance transport. As you see, before the accident, most of the cases actually were related to internal diseases like the heart failure or the pneumonia and other gastrogenic problems like the stomach ache and etc. But after the accident, the most notable finding is the number of the occupational related injuries. In 2011, although small, it looks small, but it increased four times, fourfold, 4 times 4 before the accident. This is because it is related to the emergency operation at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. And after the evacuation orders lifted, Kawauchi, the number of the internal diseases have increased. And when the Tomioka and Namie town, the evacuation were lifted, the number of the cases, internal internal problem, internal diseases like illnesses has increased again. This is what we used to see before the accident. That is the normal situation before we faced the accident. Regarding the age cohort of the transported patient, before the accident, most of the people actually, the age greater than 65, and all the people actually required emergency, transportation. But of course, after the accident, those people are already evacuated, and the younger generation, the number of the younger generation, the proportion of them actually increased. And again, lifting of evacuation orders led to the increased proportion of the older patient. This slide shows the time to hospital arrival. What is the definition of time? Is the time when you called 911, and in Japan we call it 119. But most of the countries you have the similar number, and the time from the emergency department to hospital arrival. When you get sick or get injured, you call 911, and then ambulance come over here, and they pick it up and to transport to the hospital. The time required from 911 call, the time to arrival of the hospital. Shows the before the accident, most of the people actually transported within 60 minutes. This is Japanese average. We have the very good pre-hospital system in Japan. If you call 911, you will reach the hospital within most of the cases within 60 minutes, without any charge. So please feel safe if you are here. And but after the accident, of course, most of the hospital actually closed because of the evacuation order, and the time to hospital actually increased, prolonged actually. And in Futaba town, and most of the people actually are required to reach hospital. It required 120 minutes, 2 hours. Some people actually required 4 hours to get to hospital. So this is what happened. If the area was once the evacuation order was issued, the medical, the systems, becomes weakened because of the evacuation. So we need to some type of, the makeshift system during that period. But anyway, as you see, once this hospital, the Futaba Medical Center, where I'm working on right now, was established 2018. The people, the time to hospital arrival, shortened to again, but not before the accident, because in this area only one hospital is operated for the emergency cases. Before the accident, there are several hospitals were here, and so although Futaba Medical Center was established, but still it takes much more time to get to the hospital compared to the other, the area. This is the short summary based on the findings observed in the ambulance data. And with the lifting of evacuation order, the number of ambulance use increased at an annual rate to about 10% until 2019. And Futaba and Okuma town, and where the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant is located, the lifting of evacuation order has been delayed. This is one of the major reasons why people, the intention of the people who want to return home and decreased. And so that's why the number of the ambulance use after the accident was small. In Hirono town, as I mentioned, it was not issued evacuation orders. And those ambulance use decreased temporarily, but recovered very soon to the pre-accident levels. In Kawauchi Mura, where the evacuation order was issued, only part of the village, and also it was lifted in 2014, relatively early. That's why emergency medical needs did not decrease so drastically. And again, no major change was observed thereafter. And the proportion of trauma caused by occupational accident has increased, as I mentioned, fourfold in 2011 compared to before the accident. And also the traffic accident, increased since the 2014. Since 2018, the proportion of traffic accidents has been decreasing. This is why, this is a comparison. The other needs, reason for calling ambulance has increased. That means internal diseases such as stomachache and also the heart problems and something like that. And the number of the younger age, young and older people decreased after the accident because this is simply because of the lifting evacuation order, issuing the evacuation order. But as the evacuation order has been lifted, particularly since 2014, the proportion of older people increased again to return to the previous level, but not still the same levels. This is what we have found based on the ambulance data. So what we found since the establishment of Futaba Medical Center. Futaba Medical Center was established 2018. This hospital was operated by the Fukushima Prefecture and Tomioka to meet the emergency medical needs. This is one of the major reasons why we have here. And FMC is a small hospital, just 30 beds. It's very small. It could require to provide initial emergency medical care, including the responses to nuclear and radiological emergencies at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. And some of the cases actually related to the activities of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, but so far we haven't seen any major contaminated patient after the accident. It also runs the medical helicopter to eliminate the geographic disadvantages. Particularly it takes, as I mentioned, in this area, the other hospital is far away, located far away, and it takes sometimes about more than 2 hours. And so we need, air transportation. That's why we're operating the heli system. Although the main role of a hospital is to provide emergency medical care, but it also requires to function to provide such as the home care for the elderly populations. And particularly in this area, home care, recently the number of the people, elderly people with multiple medical problems has increased. And on the other hand, we don't have so many resources to take care of those patients. And that's why we need to provide them such as home care and the support of promotion, the resident health promotion for residents. This is the data from a hospital, the monthly data and trends of number of the patients we treated at Futaba Medical Centers. And red line is the year of 2018. Orange is 2019, and green is the 2020. As I mentioned earlier, the number of the ambulance cases decreased in 2020. This is related to the corona outbreak, and we see the same trend in hospital visit of the patient. And particularly in the winter, this is the time when the corona outbreak has just started. And the reason for that is that people usually think that if you have the coronavirus outbreak, there is a surge of medical needs. But it did not happen at this time, initially, of course. And this is because, people are refraining from to see the doctors because of they are told to do so by the government. And also, they avoid contact of the other peoples. And that's why, particularly we observed the decreased proportion of the infection, particularly the pneumonia. This sounds like a little bit, odd, but this is what happened initially. This graph shows the annual number of the patient by the municipality of the residents. You know, we have the national insurance card. Everybody, you know, we Japanese people have insurance, health insurance card, and where they have the you know, address where it is registered, and so this is the breakdown of the whole, you know, the areas over here. But if you see the out of the Futaba region and out of the Fukushima prefecture, almost 30% of the patient actually we see their, you know, registration is made in the other areas. This is because, you know, most of the people actually are engaged in the, you know, recovery project, and also the, you know, sustaining injury caused by the motor vehicle accident. This is one of the reasons why we see so many people actually, you know, coming from the other places. And regarding the municipality within the Futaba County, Tomioka and Naraha, you see the number of the patient. You know, most of the patients actually those two municipalities. This is because Tomioka is located here. It's very close. Though the population is not that large. On the other hand, Futaba has the second biggest population, although not that many, 4,000 to 5,000 people. So the proximity and also the volume of the you know, population are related to the number of the patient visits. On the other hand, in Namie town is located north in the Futaba region. We did not see any, you know, increase so much, you know, the patient actually, so many patients actually visit our hospital. This is because Namie is located here, and they usually visit the other hospitals in Minami-Soma cities. This is one of the reasons. So this graph shows the annual number of those patients by age cohort, and red bar is the 2018, and the orange bar indicated 2019, and the green bar indicated 2020. As you see, when this hospital was established in 2018, the biggest number of the patient age cohort is the 50 to 60s. Not that old patient at all. This is related to the, as I mentioned again, occupational related injury. That's why relatively young generation were actually treated at the hospital. On the other hand, as time goes by, you know, the older patient, the number of older patient increased again. And we see two peaks right now. One is the 50s, the other one is 80s. The second peak, particularly the peak of the 80s, greater than 80, is the people who return, you know, to Futaba County. Those people are very old, and they have the multiple medical problems like the diabetes, heart failure, and stroke, and etc. And particularly 2 years ago, 2020, then the huge, you know, dip of the people aged greater than 90s. I see the patient, you know, in a hospital, and 80 years old patient, we sometimes, you know, evaluate them as a younger patient. And we really see the older patient, 90 or sometimes, you know, more than 100 years old. So this square shows indicated that more people with the multiple medical problems, more elderly people actually return to the Futaba County. This slide shows the reason for visit, classified by ICD classification. As you see, you know, this is a class indicated by the WHO, and you see the more than 30% patient is the TSWV classification. This means the, you know, injury, and as I mentioned before, you know, we see the many people with occupational injury or trauma injury, motor vehicle injuries. Yes, we see 30% is related to them. On the other hand, respiratory disease and digestive and circulatory disease, you see the other, you know, major cause of the hospital visit. But these, you know, diagnosis actually, the very latest to the aging. And so as you see the more people with, the age population actually, age patient actually, you see more people with the heart problems, respiratory problems, and digestive problems. But when we look at the E, the green one, and the E means this is the endocrine, nutritional, metabolic disorder. It sounds very difficult, but simply it is diabetic. So we see more people increase in diabetic patients here in Futaba County. And also the number itself is small, but we need to carefully look at the trend, and particularly this F. F means mental and behavioral disorders. This is sometimes patients with these depressive problems and something like that. This might be related to the might be uniqueness of these areas. So again, and this graph shows the number of the inpatients who are required medical treatment, hospitalized patients. And so most of the patients actually, who require medical treatment and hospitalization, we see here is the elderly patient, particularly older than the 80s and 90s. And we do not see so many patients in younger generation, but of course, we see there is more elderly patients with multiple medical problems. That's why it's. And we only have 30 beds and very limited medical resources. If you have for example, heart attack, or stroke, or major injury, those medical problems actually requires the advanced treatment like the intervention and also surgical maneuver, surgical intervention. Those patients, we transfer those patients to the other hospitals, hospitals located in Iwaki cities or Minamiso, and sometimes in Koreama, and so most of them actually require air transport. So that's one of the other reasons, we don't see so many patients in 50s to 70s. And also we do not see the patient with cancer. Those patients are actually treated at the other hospitals. So this graph shows the patient we see in a hospital, and most of them are actually elderly people. Summary based on the findings observed in the hospital indicated here, and since the establishment of the Futaba Medical Center, the number of the patients has increased, and 2018, most of the outpatients, as I mentioned, are in the 60s, and 30% of them had a health insurance card residents outside Futaba County. This is very unique here in Futaba County. Most of the workers engaged in decontamination and reconstruction project, and that means job-related, occupational accident injuries. So the increase in older patients, the age over 80s, since 2019 is noteworthy, as I mentioned. A significant increase in hospitalization of older patients has become observed since 2018. While the population of patients residing in Futaba County has increased, the number of the patients from outside prefecture has decreased, resulting in an increased weight of medical needs for returning older patients. Although absolute number is small, and the number of patients classified into the ICD group C, as I mentioned, endocrine, nutritional, metabolic disease, and F, mental and behavioral disorder increased. The increase in E may be influenced by the increased prevalence of diabetes due to change in lifestyle. As you may already know, the evacuation is very closely related to these lifestyle related illnesses, including diabetes or the obesity, and hypertension, hyperlipidemia, etc. And F, as I mentioned, this may reflect the mental issues of the returnees. Regarding mental problems, Professor Murakami, he used to be a professor at FMU in Department of Risk Communication. He evaluated the prevalence of case 6 that indicates the mood and anxiety disorders. in three groups. One is the general population, and the other one, two is the evacuees and returnees. He found that the evacuees has a higher proportion, 2.5 times greater proportion of the people actually have the psychological distress compared to the general population. Returnees, the proportion itself is lower than the evacuees, but still higher than the general population. This means the return people actually have more comfortable living here, but still have the psychological distress. That means we see them very carefully regarding the psychological distress. So after the accident, evacuation was ordered, and all people actually left this area. And some of the houses were demolished, and after that, if those people who have the intention of return, government, national government, and local government have the residential areas again, and sometimes commercial districts, rebuilt commercial districts. And the life here is not the same at all. Some people actually are very lucky to have the same house, to live the same house over here. But most of the people actually return here is actually totally different, environment. And as you know, this area used to have the multi-generational families. That means grandpa and parents and the children, they live together. But evacuation had destroyed all the family structures, and they separated, and some of the people actually living alone. And those people want to return, and they decide to return over here. They live these, the houses, and the houses, the life itself is totally different from it used to be. So this is the population of municipalities in Futaba County in comparison of the 2011, before the accident, and 2021. And as I mentioned, the Namie and the Tomioka has the biggest population before the accident. But after the accident, the only 10% returned. One of the reasons is the time delay to lift evacuation orders. These two municipalities, evacuation order was lifted in 2017. It's too late. And on the other hand, in Naraha town, where the evacuation order was lifted in 2015, and 4 years after the accident, the 60 or 70% of the people returned. And in the future, what happened? So this slide, the same slide as the previous presentation. But these four municipalities I show you here, and two of them are biggest, the cities before the accident. And Tomioka and Namie towns, and around 15% of the people already return or intention to return, but 50% of the people do not. On the other hand, the evacuation, lifting of the evacuation has been delayed into Okuma and Futaba towns. The proportion of the people who decide not to return has much more. And this is the surveys conducted by government. And at least, most of the people actually, have already settled the other places. As I mentioned, right now, we only 10% of the people actually return here. And right now, the population is 15,000 people. It used to be 74,000 people here. But right now, less than 20%, but 30 to 40% of them actually came here from the other places. So those people who remain, evacuated or dislocated has already settled down. They have a family, job, and etc. They do not come. They will not come or return here. So this is what happened. So the national government tried to revitalize these areas with various projects. And So first, the national government has started innovative projects to name the Fukushima Innovation Course Framework like this, and designed to build the new industry infrastructures in the coastal region of Fukushima Prefecture in order to recover the industries that were lost due to the earthquake and tsunami and nuclear disasters. And the promising business such as the decommissioning and also the hydrogen and other alternative energy industries such as they started this new project and to attract many people to over here. And furthermore, just recently, as the other guys just introduced some project. The government has a plan to establish the Fukushima Institute for Research, Education and Innovation, FREI, and the World Class Core Center for Creative Reconstruction. This was just announced this year, and maybe in the 5 or 6 years, this project has been started. And owing to this effort, a new influx of younger generation will be expected. And so, what we need to do right now regarding the medical system, and WHO, as you know, they have taking the building back better approach in order to recover in order to the rebuild system is stronger and safer and smarter and more resilient. This necessitates the identification of the rectification of weakness inherent in the previous system, and the during health systems, recovery health service provision can be improved. And by addressing previously neglected areas such as mental health and non-communicable diseases, and strengthening linkages between primary and secondary health services, reviewing the distribution of facilities against the demographic changes, and strengthening medical capabilities in areas with the greatest needs. What we have been doing right now here in Futaba County, and the patient data have been analyzed monthly by us, FMC, and since its establishment, and ambulance transport data evaluated annually, as I mentioned. And health issues returning residents, including mental health, are monitored by the municipalities and shared among related organizations on a regular basis. The national government conducts, as I mentioned, the questionnaires or surveys regularly on return of residents and predicts population trends in this region. We have the study panel consisting of the national government, Fukushima Prefecture, municipalities, and medical experts, including me, and the affected areas, and have developed specific plans. And the establishment of the Futaba Medical Center is one of these specific plans. And by examining the status of the issues of medical systems, including long-term care for older and disabled people, human resources of financial support. So we still have the middle of this process right now. So this is my last slide. And as I mentioned earlier, our project has never been tested before, because we are trying to rebuild the societies where once the evacuation was ordered. This has been tested before, and our the experience is unprecedented in that sense. So our experiences would provide a basis for future planning for a nuclear accident. And also we have the very similar problems with the other areas, not only Japan, but also the other countries. To counteract the depopulation and aging societies, we have very common, challenging issues. So in experiences, collaboration with related organizations, the hospitals and the other government facilities and the other organizations are crucial, and proactive approach. That means we use effectively the home visit for the resident, very suitable for the region with similar programs. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Tanikawa. And we have time for question and answers. Do you have any questions you want to ask?
Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. I was just wondering, for the first part of your presentation, your data was based on ambulance pickups. So I was just curious why you chose ambulance pickups. Like, will that not miss patients who had walk-in consultations, or I don't know, is that something that I don't know about the healthcare system? And secondly, the Futaba Medical Center, it was established in 2019. So before that, I'm guessing that the evacuees had to follow up in other, wherever they evacuated. So how did the health systems in these areas cope with the extra demand of these complex medical needs?
Okay, and the first question is we don't have the data regarding medical needs before the establishment of FMC. And that's why we look into the ambulance data. And the other reason is in those days we didn't have any hospitals around here, and that's why most of the emergency need can be evaluated by looking at the ambulance data. That's the reason for that. And the second question is a very good question, and particularly many people actually live in Iwaki City. I think some of you actually already visited over there. But medical risks, increase soon after accident. The people from Futaba, particularly Futaba County, they evacuated to the Iwaki cities, and so particularly the major hospitals are very, filled of the patient. So evacuated from the Futaba County. And unfortunately, we do not have the data, the reason why we visit. But right now, national government is looking into that data, insurance data right now, because we are planning to rebuild the general hospital around here, maybe in 5 or 6 years, I don't know. That's why we need to require more data for their patient. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any other questions come?
It's not kind of question, more like a suggestion or a thing at which we can elaborate a little bit. Since we were asked to just sometimes give our own view or suggestions, I want to ask you, is Futaba Medical Center right now doing only medical care or also involved in some kind of medical research?
Yes, regarding medical research, I just showed some data. This is the epidemiological, some kind of epidemiological data regarding the medical needs. So that I think we need to share with the other people from the other countries. That's why, and this paper actually published and early this year, and you can look into that data.
Yes, right. But it's kind of epidemiological study, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can look into this. This is open access journal, and you can download all the data.
Yeah, I see.
And the other, the clinical research has been, done in some areas. Like since the coronavirus, outbreak, we do some, interventional studies on the effectiveness of corona data. But it's not related to anything at all with the radiation or the, evacuation.
Yeah. I asking this because I thinking about this in a concept like since you already in situation where like this territory is damaged by radiation and people live sometimes in settings with radiation that with levels of radiation that may be a little bit higher than on other territories, it could be used like as a driver for radiation related science and like in terms if we speak about like human biology, because nowadays like we have a set of markers that we can estimate and understand whether human bodies suffer from radiation. and then you can collect this data and address like a question of is harmful to live on these territories, and use this data as evidence for those who still not sure whether they like can return or cannot return to these territories. Like this kind of research could be organized like on a base of this medical center, or could be involved maybe in some part of this Fukushima innovation cost framework.
That's a very good question, and particularly in the effect of low dose radiation, I think you mean there. And of course, the study has been done by, for example, Fukushima Medical University by using the health data of the evacuees, and also done by the Fukushima University, particularly for the using the forestry and also the animals. And regarding the effect of the human, health, and the radiation was so low, and we haven't expect any influence on the health insurance. Radiation cause the problems for the medical returnees. So of course we need to look into that in the future, and so those research actually have been planned. As I mentioned, the national government and the local government just decided to build the new centers in 5 or 10 years, and I think they will start that project once they are established.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it, because it's not only about a question of level of dose, but the amount of like time of exposure. Because it's like low-level ionizing radiation that's like that people chronically exposed to. So it's definitely worth checking project.
Yeah, I think it will be needed in the future. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yes, thank you for this very interesting presentation. I have one question, maybe it's a little bit too soon, but did you observe some effect specific to this region in the treatment of COVID? Because COVID-19 disturbed maybe the access to the hospital or the type of treatment, and is there a link with the fact that people were already depressed and so on due to the accident?
Yes, it's a very good question, and it's very difficult, answers. And of course, we see the COVID patient here, and it really depends on the hospital, the attitude towards COVID is classified as as a second grade communicable diseases in Japan, and that means almost the same as Ebola virus, etc. And those, we have the very strict medical system here, and those patients actually treated by the designated hospital only. And that means, this system, resulted in the overcrowding of the, designated hospital like the FMU and the other, the big hospitals. And that's caused, other medical, problems like they're canceling, for example, the operation for the cancer patient, and canceling the admission of other severe medical illnesses. And so, fortunately here in this region, of course, we have many issues when we treat the patient, COVID patient. Particularly, we need to avoid cluster, outbreaks in hospital, and so we need special, systems to do that. But in our hospital, we see the patient, the regular patient, as well as the COVID patient, and we fortunately we haven't had any problems regarding the taking care of the patient in general. But a major, problem is right now is the sick of the medical, personnel because of the, COVID, infection, and some of the staff actually, have the, COVID, and they require to, by the national government law, by law, infectious law, and required to certain period of time to leave. So that's one of the, major problems right now, and this happened all over the Japan, and so, but this might be unique, and so that's why we still wear mask like this, and we still have strict control of the, diseases, communicable diseases, COVID, and so this is the, unique to Japan. Did I answer your question?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I fully agree with you that we have a lot of lessons learned to learn from your experience. My question is, I think, a little bit the same about low doses. In what you presented, there is no data on cancer because they are not taken in charge in your hospital, as far as I understood. But do you have the possibility to have an idea of the number of people, just for information of the people on the same area? And the second question is about, I understood that one of the main question was about the health problems for children of the people. Did you try to have a look? Maybe you don't have enough young people in the area, but do you have an idea of what are there specific patterns of disease for young children coming back to the area?
Could you say again the first question?
The first question is about cancer. I understood they are not treated in your hospital, but do you have a possibility to have an idea of the number, of the frequency of cancer compared to the other diseases?
I don't have any data because the cancer patient we see is transferred to the other hospitals, and I don't have any incident here in the regarding cancer, the occurrence. And so the other thing is the population is very small here, and so I'm not sure we can make any, statistical analysis, by looking at the incidence of cancer here at all. And so we need to look into more much bigger data, and including the other areas like Iwaki and Fukushima, etc. And so so statistical analytical point of view, we don't have so many cancer patients here. And also, we don't see the type of the cancer and etc. We don't have any data because we transfer the patient to the other hospital. And the second question is regarding the children. And yes, we have some family who have young children, particularly in Naraha town. And but again. Our hospital is emergency hospital, and we only see the patient with emergency medical needs. And the children, they have the fever and fit or convulsion or trauma sometimes, and we only see those patients. And so the patient parents with the children with other problems actually, take their kids to the other hospitals like New York City and the other areas. So unfortunately, I don't have the data regarding the pediatric population. Okay.
Yeah, happy to see you, Professor Tanigawa, and it was a very nice presentation. As you are so deep rooted in this medical community, would you say the medical coverage in the, let's say, former evacuation zones is for now sufficient, or would you say you have a decent demand for medical doctors and nurses for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that is also very important question, and I don't think it is. I don't think it's sufficient at all. And as I mentioned, we only see the emergency patient, and we don't see any patient with, for example, cancer and other medical problems. And those patients actually required to go to the other hospitals, the Iwaki and Koriyama, and sometimes Fukushima Medical University. Some of the patients actually, go to Fukushima Medical University from here for example, breast cancer. And so regarding coverage, we need to be more, required to general care for the patient over here, because right now, it just takes 1 or 2 hours to get to the hospital to see the doctors, and we need to change the system. That's why, just recently, national and local government actually introduced a plan to build build a hospital where which meets the medical needs of the patient. It's a very important question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and it's very good to see you again as well. One of your slides showed the level of mental stress divided between the evacuees, the returnees, and the general population. Maybe it's unfair to ask this question, but do you think that people haven't returned because they have a higher level of stress, or do you think people have a higher level of stress because they haven't returned? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, good question. And the reason for return over here is not related to the mental stress, I guess. And of course, some of the people who return here feels more comfortable than being remain dislocated. That is, I think, it's very natural. And but actually, this study has done by Dr. Murakami, and he's right now at the Osaka University. And what he found is at least evacuees remain dislocated people actually have to remain having the psychological distress and compared to the general population and other returnees. This is what they found, and so the reason for not returning is totally not totally but different from mental status. And so some people actually already settled down the other places. They have the job, and the kid has already school, and so they feel more comfortable living over there. Might be, but still they have some loss of sense regarding the evacuation and the dislocation. This graph just shows that fact, and so I never looked into that. The psychological distress refrain them from returning home. I don't know. So, but that is a very good question.
Thank you. Thank you, Koichi, for your very nice presentation, as usual, but you are a close observer of the situation here. You are right in the middle of the problems. How would you define the current challenges and the future challenges of the place in general? You go a little bit beyond the health issues, but what is your feeling about it?
The challenge is if you want to rebuild the society by increasing returnees to these areas, that's going to be a very big challenge. And so the population itself is almost reached peak, and I do not expect any further huge increase of the people who are displaced come back over here. And but still, yes, this area as dreaming of the recovery. I think it's okay dreaming about the recovery, but still there's a big gap between recovery and what we would be able to done. The gap between what we able to done and the reality is a big gap, and that is that is very seems to be very challenging for me. And so we need to, there should be a time when we understand the situation, and so we need to swallow what it is. I think the time has come. Will have come very soon. That is the but still in the people mind, and the gap between the reality and their not dreaming, the future planning. And that is biggest challenge, I think, there for me. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's quite important to have a global overview about the trend. What do you think about the young generation? Do you think that they are committed, or do you feel something about the young generation specifically?
Yes, I think the young generation with the totally different perception, the way of thinking or value, those people actually may come over here and rebuild the society, I guess. This is my feeling, just feeling. And actually, young people moved in and the Futaba region, and they started a new business and also started new life over here. Although there are lots of inconvenience here, but still they try to live here. Some of them, not that many. But I think this area has been supported by those people in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tanigawa. And it's time to close these sessions. We need to go to the Kawauchi village. Before we get on the car, we have some time to go to the washroom, this road, and turn left.